Hello and welcome to the world-famous and award-winning Driving You Crazy podcast. This is the show where we talk about all things transportation, anything that gets you from here to there. I'm the traffic anchor and the transportation reporter for Denver 7 News, Jason Luber. If you would like to be on the show, you sure can call the listener hotline. It's supposed to work. I don't know how it works. I have a desk in the newsroom, but the phone isn't even plugged in. The number, I'll give it to you anyway, is 303-832-0217. Yeah, so they gave me, so I have a desk. My main desk is in the main studio, just like it was in our old building, right? And so I have set it up very similar to my old building setup, where I have my computer system, the traffic system right in the center, and then some secondary systems to the right, and then some other screens to watch other things that are happening, outside the building, some of the remote feeds and the helicopter and that sort of thing on different monitors. And then I can play them all on TV, which is pretty cool. But I'm doing all my work right there all the time. And I'm in the studio. I get there at about 3:30 in the morning, and we're not really done until a little after 8:30, 8:45 or so. And then we have our morning meeting, and it goes until a little after 9. And so, I'm really there. And then so I go back to my desk in the main studio because that's where all my stuff is, right? Instead of trying to take my laptop, and if there was a traffic incident or something, there was the other day where we had this horrific crash with this semi-trailer. This driver was going east on I-70 here in Metro Denver and going into this construction zone where there's a little, so they have this lane shift. They're doing a bridge bridge replacement project. So there's a lane shift where instead of going straight over where the eastbound lane should be, the highway is shifted over to the left as you're driving over it onto the new portion of the bridge as they're building another new portion of the bridge where the eastbound lanes eventually will be. So there's a weird, but it does a weird right, left, right twist. And people come in there, the drivers come in there, whether it's a car or a semi, whatever. I said semi. I mean semi. When they come in there, there's this weird right, left, right shift in there. And if you come in there too fast, you'll almost tip. So this driver, a couple weeks ago, was coming through there, and he was carrying these big blue, huge plastic pipes. It looked like piping for underground water underwater systems. So he flips over, and he's in the left lane, and as the truck flips over, all of these pipes come loose and go into the westbound lanes. Well, unfortunately, this couple who had just gotten married a few days earlier, maybe a week earlier, was driving on the westbound side. It was a couple, their 1-year-old child, and the bride's parents, mom and dad. So all five were in the car, and unfortunately, the couple and the bride's mom were all killed in this crash when this stuff from this semi fell over and then hit their car and killed them basically instantly there on the roadway. The bride's father and the baby both survived with just minor to, not life-threatening injuries, as I understand. But then the next day, the helicopter was over that area because it was all open again at that time. After the investigation and all of that happened. So the next day, the helicopter was just randomly over there watching the traffic, and here comes a semi driver in a regular semi truck. And he'd made that little right, left, right shift, and you could see the trailer start to tip a little bit. And so I did that. It was like right before my 6:30 update. So I because of my system, I'm able to, I'm recording the helicopter all the time. I hit stop. I took the video, and I showed it on TV almost as if it was live, just moments after it happened. And I said, this is the danger. This is what's happening in that area. And I talked to one of our investigative reporters about it, and they did a whole piece about it for later on in that day and showed her the video. But that was exactly what happened. Anyway, so I have all these systems there, and that day of the crash happening, people were coming to me, and they wanted to do live cut-ins and do more newscasts and that sort of thing, because obviously it was a big story for that day. So that's why it's hard for me to have a desk in the newsroom. That whole story was to tell you why it's hard for me to have a desk in the newsroom where the phone is. So I have that phone, and I have a desk, the phone that's not plugged in, and on my desk I have one of those little arms where the monitor is supposed to be hanging, right, for your computer, so you can plug in your computer into a dock or whatever, and then you have a screen in front of you, not just your laptop screen. Well, mine, I had no screen there, so I printed one out that's maybe half the size of a piece of paper, and I cut it out and I taped it up there to where a real monitor, computer monitor, should be, and it's still up there right now with a phone on the desk that is still not plugged in. Anywho, all of that to say, if you want to try to give me a call, the number is 303-832-0217, and I will figure out a way to get your voicemail off of there and then put it here on the old program. Before I get to my guest, I saw this headline, and my first thought was animals helping people once again. There is so much in the animal kingdom that we don't know about that would be great for great usefulness to humans. And this, I guess, is another great example. Here is the headline from it's a website called arstechnica.com. Lufthansa is using artificial shark skin to streamline airplanes. I thought that was really interesting. Now, the article is basically a story of how bad airplanes are with polluting the skies. But I was more interested in the shark skin information, so I left a bunch of that. If you want to go read the story, you sure can. Just type in shark skin into the Google machine and type in arstechnica.com, and I'm sure it'll pop up and you can read all that stuff. But I was interested in the shark skin stuff, and the article says companies are often caught between wanting to cut emissions but also grow profits. This is why Lufthansa has been copying a trick from the animal kingdom, applying a special film that mimics shark skin to parts of its aircraft. Lufthansa will fit 4 Boeing 777s operated by Australian Airlines, with the shark skin technology joining 17 other airframes which already have the film. Nearly 9,000 square feet of the plane surface along the fuselage and also the engine will be covered with sheets of AeroShark film. And AeroShark film, by the way, I think it's registered because it's all in caps, and it's like a special name of the film that they put on the plane. Anyway, so it's be covered with these sheets of AeroShark film, which mimics the scales on actual shark skin, with 50 micron thick riblets that reduce friction by minimizing the turbulent boundary layer. Did you get all that? In sharks, it's calculated that this equals to about a 10% reduction in drag versus smooth skin. Using this approach has already helped Olympic swimmers cut through the water quicker, but that's swimming in water, and so the effects on the airplane traveling through the air is a little bit more modest. But it should still cut fuel costs by about 1% per flight. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but we're talking about these Lufthansa long-haul aircraft, or I guess Lufthansa and Australian Airlines and others that are doing these long-haul flights of 10 or 12 or 15 hours. And so 1% savings for those flights can be significant, especially if you are flying a lot and all the time. So any savings is good savings, especially in the airline industry. I'm sure that they appreciate that. Now, I don't know how much of the AeroShark film costs, but they have their own website through Lufthansa, and they call it AeroShark. They say they have 100,000 flight hours with this material, that they have saved 6,000 metric tons of jet fuel and eliminated 19,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide from the engines, and so that's quite a bit of savings right there. And so their big thing is to cut emissions with the shark skin technology, and obviously to make it more cost effective to fly and make it cost less to save some fuel. So Air Swiss apparently has modified their entire 777 fleet. So it's pretty interesting technology, and you can see it if you just do a search for AeroShark. and you'll come up with the website there that that Lufthansa is running, and also Swiss Airlines. So pretty interesting stuff. So one of the parts of the federal infrastructure law passed a few years back gave the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration the mandate to write rules about how automakers will create and operate alcohol monitoring systems in vehicles. Well, the blood alcohol monitoring technology would be designed and installed in new vehicles with the intent to save lives by preventing intoxicated people from driving. One company called SoberSafe, it's spelled SoberSafe, SoberSafe. They've already developed this kind of technology before the mandate, and they're located right here in Denver. To talk more about their technology, how it works, what it means to us, is Chairman and CEO of SoberSafe, David Gandini. David, thanks so much for being here on the world-famous Driving You Crazy podcast.
Well, thank you for having me, and I greatly appreciate it. I'll make sure to watch it on a daily basis from this point forward.
Perfect. Before we get into the vehicle detection system, I know that you grew up a hockey player. You were on the Michigan State hockey team, as we talked about a bit ago, and the U.S. junior national team. I should be watching you play for the Avalanche of the Red Wings, right?
Well, it was about 100 years ago, but yeah, it was great to be an athlete at that time, and it got me to school and it taught me a lot. So it was a great breeding ground for me as a business guy. So, but thank you very much for recognizing that.
And when you were playing hockey and going to school, I'm sure that after you graduated with your telecommunications degree, you never thought you'd actually be working in this type of technology.
I didn't know what I was going to be or what I was going to do, but I ended up getting involved, and I've been in the startup space since I was 25 or 26 years old. But, you run into things and you find things that are interesting. And this was extremely interesting for me. And it was a chance for us to really make a difference culturally and socially. So I really, really got excited about it. And I still am. We're trying to push it through the eye of the needle right now. So we're still going.
So in its simplest form, what exactly does your company SoberSafe do?
Okay, so we provide a touch-based platform that detects the presence of alcohol through the skin. We have two form factors. One is a stationary device called the SoberCheck, and the second is a band device called the SoberSure. But basically, when you have alcohol in your system, you emit a certain percentage of that through your skin, and that's what we read. We developed a sensor and an algorithm that reads and looks for that ethanol that's released from your skin, and that's how we determine if you have alcohol in your system or not. But at the end of the day, I mean, the mission is to create safer environments and save lives. So that's the technology.
And your company, when you first learned, because this wasn't, I believe, the business that you originally got into, but it sort of came your way. So when you first learned about this type of technology, what was your initial reaction? Were you really energized to say, I need to get into this space to help people, or to help people keep their jobs, or to help people safe on the roads?
Well, that's a great question. So initially, I was part of a financial group that acquired the company and the technology. And I ended up becoming so interested in the technology that I then joined to lead the company. But what I saw was, the breathalyzer's been around for 70 years. Yeah. The breathalyzer's cumbersome. It's 45 seconds to blow into. It's really not connected. It's an analog device. And the original team was talking about building this to compete with the breathalyzer in BAC with, blood alcohol content. But you could never do that with a transdermal sensor. And I thought maybe there's a market where we could go in and we can improve the lives and improve the behavior of these individuals that are involved in alcohol use disorder, and we can put it in locations before individuals get to work, whether it's a factory or where they're getting in their vehicle. So we started to do some testing, and it kind of evolved from there. But never had the expectation that we were going to be in the position that we're in right now.
And when you started seeing how the technology and the equipment that you were creating came about, when you were looking at it and seeing what was happening, what were you thinking? Were you thinking this is the next great invention of man?
I was basically thinking at that time, I raised a bunch of money. I hope this works. but the point is, what we were seeing is a tremendous amount of interest and excitement. But as you know, if you've got something disruptive, you've got a disruptive technology, and you've got a market that's been doing the same thing for 70 years, it's very difficult to break into that. So we had to find these early adopters and these companies that were innovators that wanted to be safer, wanted to have safer environments and protect their employees. And as I mentioned, in the behavioral health space, I mean, alcoholism is so significant, especially post-COVID. It's like 70% of all the individuals that experience AUD, they go back into rehabilitation in less than the first year. So we started to have conversations with individuals in that space and leaders in that space. And we have our technology gives them a way to better track, to better manage, better react. And it's digital, so it ties into the record system for billing to insurance companies. We just got there by accident, but there's significant upside there.
My guest is David Gandini. He's the chairman and chief executive officer of Sober Safe. We're talking about alcohol detection systems and what it does and how it works. And speaking of that, how exactly does your Sober Check device, how does it know when somebody has been drinking? As you said, I think it gets info from the skin. How accurate is that compared to, as you said, the breathalyzer, and compare the two?
Yeah, so when you drink and you're talking about extremities, it takes anywhere between 15 minutes and 45 minutes for that to show up. So you could drink a beer and you could test on our device and it wouldn't register at that point. So it takes depending on your size, your physiology, 15 to 45 minutes for that to register. So what happens is once you've been drinking and you're emitting, as I mentioned earlier, this ethanol through the pores of your system through humidity, it reads that. And again, we're not reading a blood alcohol content. You either have alcohol in your system or you don't. The breathalyzer, when you blow into that breathalyzer, it gives you a similar reading of blood alcohol content. So the difference between the devices, we've had third-party testing and it's available, on our website. But we are as accurate as the breathalyzer, but we detect a little bit before and a little bit longer afterwards. So we're very similar, but the difference is breathalyzer will give you a BAC, which is why law enforcement uses it. And Justice Space uses it. We're only reading the presence of alcohol. So we're a screening and safety device.
So it's not like I am going to be stopped for being over the limit by using your device. It just shows that I have some in my system.
Yeah. And there'll be no use case in the Justice Space or with police, with roadside sobriety. It's strictly for safety, as I mentioned, in businesses and managing AUD patients in the behavioral health space and individuals checking in for anywhere where you're looking for a presence of alcohol, but there's no blood alcohol content required, which is a ton of opportunity out there.
So what if I used, one of the alcohol swabs or something on me or around me, and I used your hand device? Would it measure that, or is that something totally different?
That's a great question. So if you use, with our technology, if you were to use alcohol-based hand sanitizer, which is one of the things that we don't recommend, there's non-alcohol based. What happened is there'd be a significant spike in the reading, and the spike would be so significant it couldn't happen from a drinking event. So we don't recognize that in our data. So if we see a spike, we don't recognize it. So it would be a false positive, but it would be significant. So that's a great question. Yes, you would see something. For example, if you were going to get gas and you had the band on, and you were standing next to the ethanol, the gas pump, it would read. But again, it would be a severe spike and it would be a non-read for us. But great question.
There are some people who are heavy drinkers. They can be a normal person most of the time, but they also can be basically a functional alcoholic, if you know what I mean, where they're off work and they can be drinking a lot, but when they're on work, they are focused and they're there and they're not drinking and they're okay. In a situation like that, you would think that people who are functional alcoholics have a tolerance obviously built up, but this detection system, it doesn't matter if you have a tolerance or not, because it's just going to detect the alcohol. But will it detect the alcohol if somebody's been drinking a lot and then stops for a while, goes to bed, and then shows up to work?
Well, I mean, again, if you're 6'6" and you weigh 250, you have different tolerance, different physiology. But basically, you could assume that if you are heavy drinking, if you're drinking heavily, If you were drinking heavily, into 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, you went to work at 8 o'clock, you would show as positive. If you were drinking normally, if you're drinking reasonably heavy and you went to bed at 11 o'clock, your system would most likely metabolize that through and it wouldn't be recognized. But again, think about that. That's a great question, but it's also a great point. Do you want somebody, and again, we're not trying to catch people, right? We're trying to make sure that they're safe and they're using our technology. You would most likely not want that person to get into a vehicle if they were drinking till 3 o'clock in the morning and they still had alcohol in their system. So again, a screening device.
Yeah. My guest is David Gandini. He's the chairman and CEO of SoberSafe, S-O-B-R, SoberSafe, talking about alcohol detection systems. And with any kind of technology, there are always going to be people who are going to try to find a way to fake it out. And I'm sure there have been people who have tried to get around it, the workers that are either wearing the band or using some kind of a hand device, right? And I'm sure drivers especially will want to start the car maybe before drinking. And so, there's always people trying to get around it in some way, right? Is there a way they can do that and get around it, or is this pretty much fail-safe?
Well, nothing's fail-safe, but let's talk about the stationary device first. So with the stationary device, when you put your finger over the sensor, the portal for the sensor, it has to read some body temperature. So you can't get by that sensor we've had situations where individuals are wrapping plastic bag around their finger and they're using it. But so could you get through? Yes. But in general, with the stationary device, you've got to read humidity. And if there's no humidity, it shows as a false read. So for the most part, you can get around anything, but we have ways of managing the data, and the customers have access to that data. So it would flag as a false, and then the customer can manage that internally with their own people, whoever their process is. With the band, you can take the band off, and you could give it to somebody to wear if you were drinking, but the band is tethered to your phone via Bluetooth. So 15 feet, if somebody was next to your phone, then they stay with you the whole time. That's possible. But again, this is not a device that's punitive. It's a device that people want to wear to try to get better. So if we were when you talk about, Jason, the ways to cheat the system, if you look at the ankle monitor, I'm sure we've all seen people that have those on, they had to make adjustments to that ankle monitor because people were putting like slices of bologna in between the ankle monitor and their ankle, so it was reading. So our device is not punitive. So it's really individuals that wear it really want to get better. So yes, it can happen with both devices, but again, we're more screening, not punitive.
But it can be punitive because it can be used by the people that would, let's say it's somebody who had an alcohol conviction and they are required, like you say, to not have any alcohol in their system, and they're using some method, the baloney method, to try to get around it. So there will be consequences if they try to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So this would be, we have clients that use our technology that have been in alcohol situations, but it's a mandatory use where they want to prove to the judge, they want to prove to the parole officer they're not drinking. If it's mandatory today in the U.S., it's all ankle monitor, which is tied to your ankle, which is not what we're not competing in that space. But yes, we do have clients that use it to manage their sobriety either before or after court, but in a mandatory situation.
So this
in a non-mandatory situation.
Okay. Yeah. And there are, as you said, people who are trying to get better. And then there's a use case where it is mandatory. So it looks like this alcohol impairment really is twofold. One, maybe preventing an immediate threat of somebody drinking right now. And two, maybe if somebody does really want to, and not necessarily is mandated to, but really wants to change their behavior, they could wear this device or have the device, the finger device, around because it makes them think, I better not drink right now because I have this consequence, that this thing that's measuring me. So it changes behavior, and it also could stop an immediate threat.
Absolutely. And so a typical example in the behavioral health space is you're in a 30-day facility, and you're exiting that facility, and you're going to remain under care for anywhere between 90 days and 12 months. What happens today is they usually offer you a breathalyzer, which is a point in time. Now we're involved in that aspect of the business. So they would say to the exit, at your exit interview, would you like this breathalyzer? Would you like this band? The band is real time. It's 24/7. It connects to an application. It connects to a dashboard. If you really want to get better, and you could drink in between, the point in time when you blow in. So these facilities are more or less now starting to mandate the choice when the patient exits, and this gives them the comfort of they're looking down at their wrist and saying, you know what, I'm not going to put my family through this. I'm not going to put myself through this. I'm going to stay clean. And that information is reported to whoever their case manager is or to their psychologist, and it just creates a great relationship because all that data is available. And today it doesn't exist. There's no, the breathalyzer, you get information via an email, or it comes in and it has to be hand entered into a system. Ours is all online. It's all on a dashboard. It's a totally different, better way to manage patient care, better way to manage safety in facilities inside now. So
alcohol, totally and with alcohol, it does get in your bloodstream after some time, 15, 20, 30 minutes. And you can, and my wife is good about smelling it on somebody. She's got the nose of a hound dog. Don't tell her I said that.
But so is mine.
But she can, so you can detect the alcohol, but can it detect other drugs like marijuana or other drugs that might be in somebody's system?
No, it's strictly alcohol right now. That's the most significant problem in the U.S. right now. And usually when there's alcohol, they're stacking other drugs on top of that. So you get a benefit by detecting the alcohol piece. But we're in conversations from time to time with other inventors and other software. But right now it's strictly alcohol.
In a couple of years, there is going to be a mandate from the federal government to the automakers to start creating these alcohol detection systems and have them put into new cars to at least hopefully detect when people are impaired. Most of them are cameras that look at your eyes to make sure that you're looking at the road and that you're not weaving and that sort of thing. That's how it's going to detect if you are impaired without doing the alcohol thing. Is your technology something that could be placed in vehicles and used by automakers to also detect if alcohol is present when somebody is in the car?
Well, can I make a comment first before I answer the question? Yeah. So this has been in motion for over 10 years, and there have been all types of technologies that have been used to test inside the vehicle. So for me, my opinion is it feels very unrealistic for passenger vehicles to have this alcohol detection because there's no one single. So I guess I'll answer a little differently. If you're using multiple type sensors in a vehicle, I say it would be within reason. But then you've got to account for physiology, all the things that you and I have been discussing, right? So I think I think it's a great idea, great thought process, but I think where the application for in vehicle is really in commercial vehicles because safety measures are at the discretion of the employer. So we can definitely see a path, and we've had some conversations, again, not our focus right now, but we've had some conversations about in vehicle and what that would mean. We just have to change a form factor. We'd have to connect it into the OBD port or into the ignition, the starting technology on the vehicle, and it would work. But I see that. I just don't see that as being realistic. I know the mandate's out there, but again, 10 years right now, and we've made minimal progress. Yeah. So I think it's more for commercial and privately owned. And believe it or not, the piece you're really missing is that insurance rates are so high, for these companies that have commercial drivers. And think about if you had alcohol technology installed in these vehicles and you could validate that your drivers are alcohol free. Yeah. But to get that done, we've had, 9 or 10 insurance companies over the last couple of years that we've met with, but nobody's moving on it right now for whatever reason. I mean, I have a lot of opinions, but back to the vehicle, I think it would be great. I just don't know how that's going to happen. And the other side of it, if you look at the auto industry, once something is developed, it takes somewhere around 5 years for something in cab from development to installation. So my opinion is that's a long ways off once they can get to the number of sensors. So short answer, yes, our sensor could be used. We've had conversations, but I think we have to have more customers, more brand identity before we can really be looked at seriously. But that's my opinion on that whole NHTSA, the NISTA, I guess you call it.
And with your wristband though, and somebody's cell phone, why couldn't a commercial truck driver have to, at the beginning of their driving shift, have to wear that? It's right next to their phone, and it can detect the presence of alcohol as they're driving. Well, it seems like it could be that simple.
Well, believe me, we had conversations 2 or 3 years ago. We thought it was a no-brainer, but the Department of Transportation has testing protocol for the drivers, and the testing protocol is point in time, and the drivers have figured out a way, those that do partake in alcohol, figured out a way around that. And there's just right now, there's not significant interest in using alcohol-based technology, detection technology. So we'll leave that for the future. And some of these things happen and they pave the way, then we'll have additional markets. But the markets that we're in right now with behavioral health and oil and gas and some of the fleet, they're so significant, and alcohol is such a significant problem. We have to stay focused right now.
Right. Yeah. My guest is David Gandini, Chairman and CEO of SoberSafe, SOBR, SoberSafe, talking about alcohol detection systems. Do you think that this law is going in the right direction with alcohol detection, or is it going in the wrong direction with trying to keep people safe on the roads?
No, I think it's very admirable, and I think it makes a ton of sense. But it's like you and I having a conversation about, boy, if we could change this in the world, wouldn't it be great? The thing is, there's so much bureaucracy, there's so much red tape around it, there's so many variables. It would be incredible to see us get there. But I just think it's going to be I applaud it, but it's going to be a long road to get there.
Yeah, because I think as I remember the law, it's written in a way that the car makers just have to have one type or some type of monitoring system. So they don't need multiple types. They just need something in there to qualify, satisfy the mandate, and off they go. It doesn't matter if it works or how well it works.
Yeah, I guess, Jason, here's my question to you. Would you think your rights would be violated if you were buying a brand new car for, now is it a cheap car is $50,000. You're buying a car and you have the ability now, somebody's mandating that you have to test for alcohol. I mean, what would you think of that?
Oh, of course. No, I'm a privacy guy. I also don't want somebody watching to see if I'm not making illegal lane changes or if I went over the speed limit by a mile an hour.
Exactly. So that, I think there's some civil rights issues, human right issues that could come into play. But again, I just don't know. I think it's admirable, but I don't know how realistic it is.
How much does your system cost to use? Is there just a device use, or is it, let's say, if I have a fleet of vehicles and or a company and I have 10 guys that I want to have monitored, what's the kind of cost that I'm looking at to have that done?
Yeah, so it's a hardware software product. So for the stationary device, it's $800 for the device, and it's $10 per month per user, number of users you have. And for the band, for the consumer band, it's $39 a month, and for the enterprise band, for the enterprise professional, it's $69 a month. And for that, you get a dashboard, you get reporting. You're able to print reports out. For example, we talked earlier about if you're in a non-mandatory situation, but you have to show a judge or a parole officer or a loved one that you've been alcohol-free. Not only do they have it on their phone and on their computer, you can print out a report and it shows you if you've had any issues. So anywhere between $39 and $69 a month for the band, and then $10 per user per month plus $7.99 for the product, for the stationary.
And if I wanted, as a personal guy, let's say I had a family member that I thought was drinking too much or wanted to keep tabs on, let's say a child, then could I buy it for myself and my family?
Yeah. It'd be $39 a month, and the band is $249. Yeah. Similar price with other fitness bands, tech bands.
Yeah. But are they cool looking? Can I?
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
well,
you
I
got
mean,
yours on right now.
can
Yeah.
you see this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
So it's pretty trimline, but we have to have a certain height here because of the sensor, and we have to have airflow there. So this is our next version, which comes out in another month or so. So this is pretty much similar to all the other bands that are out there today for health and fitness.
Yeah.
And there's also GPS tracking on this, so your phone, you know where the individual is, and you know if they're safe or not. So
Are there?
pretty
I'm sure there's other companies. When any company finds a company doing well or with interesting technology, there will be copycats. Are there anybody that's trying to take your device or have something similar?
There are several companies in the penal space, the justice space, that have bands that are coming out. Or there's one in particular in California. I think the name of the company is Backtrack. They have a band, but they're not commercially available yet. So right now we launched our band in October, and we're the first that we're aware of. We're the first commercial alcohol detection band in North America, and we've got some interest in Europe, and we're in conversations right now. So if we're getting pinged from companies like Italy and the UK for our technology, obviously their technology is not there, but we think we're the first in, which is, there's good and bad to being the first in the market. But as far as we know, there are a couple companies behind us in getting ready to launch, but not necessarily in our space. But I'm sure this will evolve over time, and we can't be the only company to do this. So I'm sure this will evolve. But the market's so significant that there's an opportunity for numerous companies in the space, in my opinion.
Yeah, and like you said, this is worldwide availability because you're not right now looking for content measuring, you're just looking for presence measuring. So everybody in the world really could use that kind of technology.
Yeah, in fact, we are in right now. We have users in Australia and New Zealand through a channel partner. We launched that the first of the year, and the group there is selling to the same behavioral health customers that we are here, same model, and they're really starting to gain some traction there. So we are already outside of the U.S. or North America.
Is there a way or a chance that you are going to work on technology to add that content measuring detection, or are you just happy saying we want to know if you have it or not in your system?
Well, that would be driven probably by any customers or integration partners that we have, because what we could do, Jason, is we could do a high, medium, low rating for alcohol, but we'll never be in the BAC comparative. So there are some companies we've talked to that are interested in that, but again, that wouldn't be significant development, but we'd have to have a pretty fat use case to do that.
And I would think that if you have companies that have a fleet of vehicles and they are all wearing that similar band, that their insurance rates, and you touched on this, could be a lot lower, and that might be a way to control costs at a company as well as keep the drivers and the public safe.
Yeah, 100%. And again, it's that getting the wind behind your sail of finding your first use case and tying in an insurance provider, and then the door opens from there. So we've had conversations, but we've had no success at this point.
So where do you go next? Where do you go from here? What is the future in the next year, 5 years, 10 years? Look for SoberSafe.
Yeah, so over the next year, we're launching some additional software products to further enhance. Like I mentioned, we've got in the next month or so, we've got a dashboard coming out which combines the data from the band and the data from the box on a single pane of glass. We're adding reports as we're learning from our customers in the market that support their needs and what they're doing, what they're going through. So we'll continue to develop the software. We'll probably end up expanding, outside North America based on these partnerships. I already mentioned Australia and New Zealand. So we'll expand outside of North America, and we'll just continue. We'll develop probably the third version of the band, which will probably have some more identification, say through the heart rate, where we can then identify Jason Luber through his heart rate. And if he takes it off and gives it to his wife, we know that he's taken that off. So there's a number of technology upsides that we have, but we're focused on gaining market share right now. And in 5 years, I mean, I would expect that we would be across North America, in Europe and other countries. And I think we'd end up being part of a larger distribution organization or distribution mechanism that'd be integrating with a larger company that has more capability than we do. So there might be partnerships in the future, but right now the focus is on brand, signing customers, and developing the best technology. But again, more importantly, saving lives, right? So we went back to, you asked why we did this. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of deaths from alcoholism. And if we can get to these people quicker, and our customers can get to their patients quicker, we're going to save lives. So that's the important thing for us. But there's a tremendous amount of opportunity, but we're just really getting off the ground with our product set right now and our new and signing customers. So the sky's the limit there, but right now our focus is what's in front of us.
Yeah, and keeping people safe, whether they're on the roads or on the trains, or, it reminds me of the Grateful Dead song, Casey Jones driving that train high on cocaine.
Yeah, never mind. I don't like that band, but I do know that song.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. There you go. Well, David Gandini, Chairman and CEO of Sober Safe, thanks again for your work and all your info. I appreciate your time and your insights.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jason. We appreciate you having us on, and we look forward to talking in the future. Thank you.
Well, glad to do it. Again, Sober Safe, SOBR Safe, is their website, or is their company name, and then the website, sobrsafe.com, is the website. And David brought up some interesting points, even after we were talking about insurance, whether it would be higher or lower, and what their thoughts are. And also, when we were talking about the privacy issue, I don't think that's been challenged yet, as the law is really not been in full swing yet, where we're seeing the car makers put these systems in the vehicles yet. I think there's going to be great pushback. It'd just be like having a governor in your car that only allows you to go a certain mile an hour. Now, there are some vehicles that have that, but you're working for a company that mandates it, and you are driving for, let's say, the widget company, and the widget company doesn't want you driving over the speed limit and might have a governor on the vehicle that caps off at 70 miles an hour. So you can't drive more than that, and it's fully within their right to do that as a private company, and if you don't want to work for that company, you don't have to. And you can go work somewhere else where you can go work for the anti-widget company, and you can drive their car at 100 miles an hour if they let you. So it's just like free speech. You only have free speech when you're standing on the street corner, and you can say whatever you want, but that doesn't mean that you have free speech at your work or in other places. So anyway, it'll be interesting to see how all of this technology works out in the future. And like David said, his technology is more, at least for now, better applications for folks that are in rehab or in alcohol detection, post-court, that sort of thing, rather than vehicles right now. But, there's definitely a market for it sometime in the future. If you want to get a hold of me, you sure can. All my contact information is in the description of this show. So until next time, thanks again for being here. Thanks for listening. I'm Jason Luber, the Traffic Guy. Be safe, and as always, happy motoring.